Good evening, good evening.
Just starting.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. If we can all find a place to be seated.
Ramel.
Thank you all so much. We are going to get started. The April 2nd special meeting of the Community Commission for Public Safety is called to order. Please place your cell phones on silent mode, remain seated, and refrain from using small handheld devices in any way that interferes with anyone's ability to see or hear the proceedings. We'll begin by calling of the roll to establish a quorum. Commissioner Driver, Commissioner Gottlieb, Commissioner Minor, Commissioner Piemonte, Vice President Ruby Navarijo, President Terry is present, Commissioner Wardham, with 5 members of the Commission for Public Safety and Accountability present. We have a quorum and we can conduct the commission's business. We also have Commissioner Driver who would like to join virtually. So do we have a motion for?
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
Your second?
They say goodbye to everybody.
All in favor? All right.
Neil.
Commissioner Driver, you are now able to participate virtually. Will you say something so that we know that we can hear you?
Passing the motion. What?
He's on mute.
Okay.
Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
It was glitching, but I believe you asked me to come off. You asked me to say something, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We want to acknowledge that this meeting falls during Passover and on Holy Thursday, and we recognize that many members of the Jewish and Christian communities could not attend tonight's meeting. We deeply regret scheduling an important meeting at this time that conflicts with major religious holidays. We need to be respectful and inclusive of all who want to attend commission meetings, and we will ensure to do so moving forward. Although we worked to find another date, we wanted to ensure that this meeting happened with urgency. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted on our website within 24 hours for those who are unable to attend. Now, I'd like to acknowledge some people in the room. I want to acknowledge Alderman Nicole Lee, Cook County Commissioner Alma Anaya, Assistant Deputy Mayor Jason Sanford. We would also like to acknowledge Executive Director of the Illinois Accountability Commission, Hina Mahmood. So are staff members of the Chicago City Council Committee on Immigrant and Refugee Rights. They also have tables near the sign-in area, and they are here collecting information about federal immigration enforcement activities in Chicago, and you can share information with them if you would like. COPA is also here if you have any reports of police misconduct. We would also like to acknowledge that we are grateful to have those who have come to the commission meetings regarding this particular topic, sharing their thoughts on this issue, especially those who attended the January 8th meeting either in person or virtually. We're also grateful for anyone who has poured into the conversation that we're going to have tonight. Finally, before we begin public comment, I'd like to say a few words about the commission's rules for behaviors at meetings. The commission's bylaws set rules that apply to everyone at our meetings, both commissioners and people in the audience. The rules are designed to make these meetings a place where all speakers are safe, have an opportunity to be heard, and are able to speak without disruption or intimidation. If people interrupt, disrupt, harass, threaten, discriminate, or disrespect, the chair of the meeting will call for order, which is myself, issue warnings to people who are violating the rules, and can ultimately have someone removed for violating the rules. Commissioners can also make motions to enforce these rules. We ask everyone to help create a safe space where we can have hard conversations respectfully and allow every speaker to be heard. The next item of business is public comment. Today, we request that speakers provide comments specifically to this topic of the Chicago Police Department and its involvement and adherence to the Welcoming City Ordinance. Feedback you have are a few options. You can always submit public comment in writing by emailing your comment to Community Commission Public Comment at cityofchicago.org. If you have a printed version of a comment, you can also give it to someone on the commission or someone on the commission staff tonight. People who wanted to speak were asked to submit their names in writing earlier tonight. A member of the commission chose 10 names at random. We have 20 minutes for public comment. If your name is not called to speak tonight, commissioners would still like to hear from you about this topic. If you don't have an opportunity to speak but have a printed copy of your comment, you can share it with a staff member or you can email it again to Community Commission Public Comment at cityofchicago.org. All comments that are submitted will be shared with the commissioners. Also, we have a Spanish language translator with us today. Would you like to be acknowledged?
Say it in Spanish.
Respect the mic, please, or you will be asked to be removed. Thank you.
Si alguien en español necesita servicios para interpretación, hasta allá están sentados aquí en el frente. ¿Se pueden parar? Oh, y también tienen los audífonos para si necesitan los servicios. Gracias.
We'll begin now with public comments. Speakers will be called in the order in which their names were drawn. If your name is called, please approach the microphone and line up in the order in which your name is called. When it's your turn to speak, please say your name, then spell your first and last name, and then offer your public comment. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Our first 3 speakers, Joanna Raymond, Cynthia Olivares, and Louise Carhart.
My name is Josie Raymond, Raimond. I'm with Illinois Fighters Against Fascist Overreach. Cook County State's Attorney Burke claims her office can't investigate crimes committed by federal immigration agents unless they are referred by law enforcement. So is CPD investigating? In response to a FOIA request, CPD told me they have not investigated any alleged criminal conduct by federal immigration agents. No prior investigations that are closed, no ongoing investigations now. The superintendent owes us transparency. Is that true? And if there are no investigations, why not? We have all seen video footage of potential crimes. Mayor Lightfoot has collected it on her website. The Illinois Accountability Commission has gathered evidence and held hearings. These sources show federal immigration agents engaging in what looks like criminal conduct, including physical assaults, pepper spray assaults, damage to property like breaking windows, threatening residents, pointing guns at residents. We also know through the failed prosecution of Marimar Martinez that federal agents rammed her car and Border Patrol agent Charles Exum shot her 5 times and then bragged about it. Has CPD investigated? And if not, why not? Local law enforcement has the legal authority to investigate federal agents and refer those cases to the state's attorney. Qualified immunity is no excuse. All police officers have that, whether under state law or in the case of federal agents, through the Constitution. But if and only if they can meet that standard at trial, it does not put them beyond investigation. It does not put them beyond prosecution. And we've had enough of pass the buck between State's Attorney Burke and the CPD. These crimes must be investigated and prosecuted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Olivares, Cynthia. I'm a community organizer and youth instructor with Increase the Peace Chicago, but I'm also a long life resident in the Back of the Arts community. In the past CCPSA meetings, community members have already come forward and share their experiences involving CPD and federal agents. I'm not here to share anymore. Those testimonies need to be taken seriously because they are very real, something we've experienced for months. So my question is, what is CPD and CCPSA doing to ensure these experiences are documented and made public so there can be real accountability? And what is the process in Chicago for placing officers on desk duty during investigations? They should not be out in the streets, especially in the cases where their actions may be aiding and abetting federal agencies instead of protecting our communities, as so it says on their sign, which is protect and serve. Thank you. Now I'll give the rest of my time to the next person.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Louise Carhart. I'm a member of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I'm also an immigration attorney in Chicago. I have a lot of clients who have been directly affected by CPD's failure to comply with the Welcoming City Ordinance. We've done a lot of digging into the compliance reports that they are required to submit quarterly, and honestly, it doesn't take a lot of digging because those reports are 2 pages long and only contain detainer requests from ICE. There's no guidance from OIG on what they are supposed to report. I think it seems like the superintendent and CPD have decided on what they report in terms of Welcoming City ordinance compliance. There's no information on open investigations in any of the BIA reports. There's no information on open investigations that COPA says have been referred to BIA in BIA or COPA reports. All of this public information is what we were pointed to and directed to as evidence that the city and CPD is working to comply with the Welcoming City Ordinance, and all of it is completely devoid of detail, actually any information about investigations. It remains to be seen whether there has been any investigation at all into violations under the Welcoming City Ordinance. And I can say from someone who has been in the streets when CPD has been setting perimeters around ICE agents, CBP agents, which is a violation of the Welcoming City Ordinance. And they claim it's crowd control. That, you know, there's no detail on what crowd control is versus setting a perimeter. And I think Superintendent Snelling has a lot to answer for tonight.
Thank you. Our next 3 speakers, Moy Hernandez, Gianna Escarino, Taiwan Sims.
Hello, my name is Moy. I am part of Carper. So I'll just read it out. This special hearing comes after months of advocacy by district councilors and community organizers and was made necessary by Snelling's failure to show up for the CCPSA February meeting. Now, public comment has been limited to 10 people. Snelling refused to participate if immigrant experts were present and would not allow the date to change despite conflicts with major religious holidays. At last month's CCPSA meeting, a majority of commissioners failed to show up and they could not hold up a vote on an OIG audit of CPD's WCO compliance. Both Snelling and CCPSA have not shown that ICE collaboration is an issue they take seriously and have failed to fulfill the mandate established by the ECPS ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gianna. I'm a member of CARPER's Immigrants' Rights Working Committee and a member of the Southwest Side, Back Gage Park area, and a community member, which is the immigrant community that was hit hardest during Operation Midway Blitz. I am here on behalf of community members who are demanding that the commission do what you can to end CPD and ICE collaboration. And we know that you all have the power to hold CPD and ICE accountable from collaborating with ICE. CPD should be publishing a monthly report on any 911 calls that were made by federal agents to CPD. Any dispatch orders to scenes where known federal agents were carrying out operations and any other forms of communication between ICE and CPD. These reports should include the names of any officers found to be collaborating with ICE, the names of their police commanders, and the districts they are located in. A list known of collaborators should be published monthly so repeated offenders or districts with persistent issues can be addressed. The video footage from the shooting of Mariman Martinez, a member of my community, this community, Brighton Park, who was almost murdered by ICE as they shot her 5 times and ran into her car, an innocent community member. Think about that. The video footage from the shooting of Mariman Martinez explicitly shows white-shirted CPD officer telling other CPD officers to move away and not record. This is explicit collaboration. Shame. Who are these officers? Who was this commander? We cannot allow this information to be sequestered and hidden by CPD and addressed internally without public participation. The community knows that CPD and ICE are in fact collaborating with each other. We have seen it with our own eyes. We have seen it in our communities. We have been on the ground. The community in this room has seen it. We have seen CPD and ICE collaborating, and we're demanding that you hold them accountable. We are also demanding that you pass the CPOP referendum so that the community can elect our own commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening, commission. Good evening, Superintendent Snelling. So I came here tonight and I turned this over and over and over, this whole argument of law enforcement, what CPD versus the federal immigration. How? You just said it, collaborating, but they're not collaborating, they're doing their job. How? It's because we can mince words, but how? How do you all suppose we get this one entity, which is law enforcement, to collaborate against itself or to what? Argue with itself? No, because the argument is coming from here. And we're wasting time. Because it's a lot of different things happening in the city.
Order. He is on
But
the mic. You
Can I get
will
my time?
be removed if you are not quiet. Respect his time. Please.
Can I save?
Have-
Because I'm still losing time.
Please. He's speaking. Can we get some? Please. Allow him his time.
Can I have my time back at least?
Thank you.
20 minutes, 20 seconds? But it's comical. But we can attribute it to Brandon Johnson for signing the executive order into action for what? How do you get the same body to go against itself? And he did it. I guess he woke up one day with this brainchild. Like, you know what? Hey, we can pit CPD against the federal ICE enforcers. And then you know what? We can take our oversight committees and have them sort it out. So that CCPSA, which should be holding officers accountable for real negligence in the communities, all 77 of them. But we have organization after organization arguing for what? But nobody spoke for Sheridan Gorman. This is in my community, Rogers Park, this young lady was murdered. I went to my community, get aid, no aid. But we're gonna use the oversight committees and we're gonna scream about justice for what? But y'all came here to drag the superintendent. But how do you get this gentleman
Be quiet, please.
to not do his job?
Respect his space.
Just like he said, law enforcement is law enforcement.
Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Great. They don't obey
Ex- ex-
They don't obey
Please.
no law.
Understand? Please be respectful for everyone.
Thank you.
Chris Bowie Gentry. Kayla Nguyen. Maya Sanchez.
Oh, howdy. So hi, my name is Chris Bowie Gentry. I'm with Puño and Common Defense. I'm a U.S. Army military police veteran who was in Little Village. I told the story last time when ICE agents during the Little Village incident at Discount Mall, one of the agents rolled his window down, pointed a gun at my head and said he was going to shoot me, right? He rolled his window down in front, 6 inches away from another police officer because the police had created a cordon. So in front of a police officer and in front of a CPD agent, CPD officer, an ICE agent rolled his window down as they're driving out of the Discount Mall, pointed a handgun out the window and said, "Bang, you're gonna die, lib," to me in front of a police officer. I have on video of me talking to that cop who then said, "I can't do anything, they're a Fed," right? It's really clear that under Superintendent Snelling, if you wear a badge, you can commit whatever crime you want to in Chicago. They shot Mayor Martinez, and the judge said that it was a crime. And yet we have no investigation. There's video of them saying, "Turn the body cams off." Where is the investigation? There's no investigation. This was in front, again, someone who has seen guns pointed at me before, having an agent of my own government point a gun at my head in front of a police officer who said, "I can't do anything." That is the orders that Superintendent Snelling has given his police. He has made it very clear that his police are not allowed to do anything to prevent ICE agents from committing crimes. They have committed crimes in our community. Police have watched them commit the crimes. We have video of them committing the crimes, and yet there's no investigation. Where is the investigation? Where is the accountability? Right? When I was a military police officer, I know how policing things are supposed to be done, and they're not doing it here. We're watching them commit crimes in our community, and the police aren't doing anything to stop them. That's what I'm asking you, Superintendent Snelling. Where is the investigations of what happened to Mayor Martinez, and where's the investigation in Discount Mall? Thank you.
Thank you.
They break all law.
My name is Kayla Nguyen. That's Kaylanguyen. I am a member of Carper's Immigrant Rights Working Committee, and I have a few questions for the committee today. So at the last meeting, like it's been stated here already, the commission failed to have quorum and delayed a key vote to have the OIG audit BIA and its investigation of CPD's compliance with the WCO. Why does the commission continue to delay meaningful action in favor of needless deliberation and nitpicking in the face of the people and the public who have come to express their grievances and ask for the commission's accountability in regards to CPD ICE collaboration, an end to pretextual traffic stops, an end to police torture, and white supremacist cops we know are on the force? Must this commission take off its pants to fart too? I don't disagree with the idea that accountability should be done with care and due process, as is the right of every individual in person. But when it is evident that this terror and violence continues to disproportionately affect our Black and Brown communities from the hands of law enforcement, when this commission has heard direct testimony from several community members, when due process is not afforded to people living in the city, and when it is clear that CPD would rather protect and serve ICE rather than the people that they have sworn to defend, when we are seeing CPD crowd control during immigration enforcement, actively legitimizing and encouraging ISIS extrajudicial kidnappings and recognized violations of federal law, that's a problem that you guys need to address expeditiously. In Chicago specifically, ICE has a pattern and practice of detaining people without warrant or probable cause. And being protected by a line of CPD officers allows them to carry out these illegal detentions with little public accountability. We know that this emboldens ICE and it results in injuries to the public. And if the federal government wishes to carry out immigration enforcement activities in Chicago, then their own resources should be sufficient to manage all of the following consequences. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Maya, Mayasantchez. I want to echo what everyone before me has said, except for that one guy. CPD protecting themselves over public accountability is a pattern we have seen for years. We saw this after the Laquan McDonald shooting, the Dexter Reed shooting, and the Rika Boyd shooting. CPD continues to operate outside of the federal consent decree issued in response to its failure to provide public accountability. Now CPD is protecting ICE in direct violation of the Welcoming City Ordinance, putting law enforcement agencies ahead of the people CPD is meant to protect shows that the true goal of these agencies is protecting those in power. As previously has been said, this special hearing comes after months of advocacy by district councilors and community organizers and was made necessary by Snelling's failure to show up for the CCPSA February meeting. Now, public comment has been limited to 10 people. Snelling refused to participate if immigration experts were present and would not allow the date to be changed despite many conflicts that you guys outlined yourselves. At last month's CCPSA meeting, a majority of commissioners failed to show up and they could not hold a vote on the OIG audit of CPD's WCO compliance. Both Snelling and CCPSA have not shown that ICE collaboration is an issue that they take seriously and have failed to fulfill the mandate established by the ECPS ordinance. Do better.
Thank you. The last speaker. Hello. Delaney Bonaquisti.
One citizen.
That's the last speaker. Delaney.
One citizen.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Delaney, Delaney, Bonacquisti, and I'm here today from my beloved neighborhood of Albany Park. As you can see, I'm white and I have a Midwestern accent. You would think my day-to-day life is probably not affected by ICE, right? But it is actually, because my friends and my loved ones who are closest to me are in constant fear. Even with quote unquote proper documentation, they're still afraid to do normal quotidian things like travel on metro trains or allow their parents to travel internationally to visit family. One person I know was too afraid to even travel to their local police station to retrieve a physical copy of a crash report because they worry that they visibly look like an immigrant and might be at risk of being kidnapped by ICE. Why? CPD isn't ICE, right? They don't share data. They respect the Welcoming City Ordinance. But still, my legally documented friend was so afraid that they couldn't go by themselves to make a simple 5-minute request unless I accompanied them. Superintendent Snelling, the actions of your officers at events like June 4th downtown and November 8th in Little Village make it so that anyone with even a whiff of any kind of non-citizen status is afraid to even go to a police station to pick up a simple report. I said my loved ones are in constant fear. Do you think I'm not? I can't protect my friends. I can't protect the people I love. If masked agents ambush them, what do you want me to do? Who can I call? I can't call the cops, I'll tell you that. I will not call people who will stand with their backs to the kidnappers like CPD did in the eyewitness stories, already related by public commenters at the January 9th CCPSA meeting at Talia Hall. Finally, I want to say to the commission, on behalf of my fellow Jewish and Christian neighbors, it's messed up to put this meeting today. I don't agree. I don't countenance your statement that this had to happen with urgency. It was an 8-month delay between the June 4th incident of collaboration with CPD and ICE. It's been 3 months since the last meeting. Urgency was left in the dust long ago. I don't believe that.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. We have reached the end of our public comment period. First, we're going to move on to new business. First, we will vote on the approval of our minutes. Before today's meeting, draft minutes of the commission's regular meeting held on February 26th were shared with all commissioners. Are there any corrections to the draft minutes that were shared? If there are no corrections, I move to approve the minutes. I have moved to approve the minutes of the commission's meeting held on February 26th. Commissioner Piamonte has seconded. Is there any debate on the motion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Those in favor of adopting the motion to approve the minutes from the commission's meeting held on February 26th, please say aye. Are there any opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it and the motion carries. The minutes are approved. Next, we'll take a vote on whether to approve a series of closed meetings. Commissioner Piamonte?
No? Can you hear me now? Okay. Section 2C3 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act allows the commission to meet in closed session to consider the selection of a person to fill out a public office or the discipline, performance, or removal of a person who holds public office. If the commission has the legal authority to fill the vacancy or remove a person from the office. The Open Meetings Act authorizes the commission to vote to hold these closed meetings for up to 3 months. Over the next few months, the commission may need to meet in closed session for reasons that are allowed under the Open Meetings Act, including discussions about appointments and filling vacancies. I move to authorize a series of closed meetings for the maximum period allowed as permitted under Section 2C3 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act.
Commissioner Piamonte has moved to authorize a series of closed session meetings to discuss the selection, performance, discipline, or removal of public office holders. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Piamonte has moved to authorize closed meetings for the maximum period allowable as authorized by Section 2C3 of the Open Meetings Act. Commissioner Gottlieb has seconded. Is there any debate on the motion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. The commission is authorized to hold a series of closed meetings for the maximum time period allowed as authorized by Section 2C3 of the Open Meetings Act. Next, we'll discuss a potential request for the work from the city's Office of Inspector General. Commissioner Gottlieb.
Can people hear me now? Great, thank you. So ever since federal immigration enforcement agents began Operation Midway Blitz last year, the commission has heard questions and concerns about whether CPD officers have violated the Welcoming City Ordinance and CPD directives that say that CPD can't assist federal agents in civil immigration enforcement. That has also raised questions about what policies, trainings, and accountability systems CPD has in place to ensure compliance with the laws and policies. It's a significant job to fully understand how all relevant policies, training, and accountability systems are working. There is an important role for the commission to play here, like today's hearing. But the city's Office of the Inspector General was created to do exactly this kind of in-depth review. The Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety leads the Inspector General's Public Safety Section, which conducts independent and objective audits, evaluations, and reviews of the operations of CPD, COPA, and the Police Board. The goal of the audits, evaluations, and reviews is to look at things like internal policies and procedures, see how well they are working, and find ways to improve effectiveness, accountability, and transparency. If the Inspector General is doing an audit and finds evidence that an individual has violated policy, then OIG can open a separate investigation into the possible violation. CCPSA's ordinance gives the Commission the power to recommend that the Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety conduct research and audits on specific issues. When the OIG does an audit, it can issue a report on its findings and make recommendations. At the Commission's public meeting in February, Commissioners asked the Deputy Inspector General Richardson how the Public Safety Section would approach evaluating CPD compliance with the Welcoming City Ordinance and relevant CPD directives. The Deputy Inspector General explained that the office would conduct an audit, evaluation, or review. Some commissioners feel that an audit, evaluation, or review by the Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety could provide valuable information and help to assess and ensure that CPD work related to federal immigration enforcement is complying with the Welcoming City Ordinance and relevant CPD directives. In addition, if the Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety conducts an evaluation or an audit and publishes a report, the Commission can use that information to determine whether any further action is appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Gottlieb. Do you have a motion?
Yes, I move that the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability make a recommendation to the Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety to conduct an audit of CPD's implementation of the Welcoming City Ordinance and related CPD directives.
Commissioner Gottlieb has made a motion and Commissioner Ruby Navarrijo has seconded. Those in favor of is there any debate on this motion?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on this. I'm a no on this, but I want to explain that I'm a no because I do not believe we're here yet. A lot of my concern in this entire conversation, our meeting on January 8th, all of the conversation that we've heard from the public since then, frankly, internal conversation with my colleagues, to me expresses a severe lack of understanding about the applicable law. Now, my colleagues said, and rightfully so, that it is and I want to make sure I quote you correctly, a significant job to fully understand all of the relevant law. It is. And I think that's our job. I realize that people come to this work with different levels and natures of experience in law or in law enforcement or in policy, whatever it is. I think that's fine. I think, though, then when you take this job, it is your job to then educate yourself. And I don't feel that this commission has either fully educated all of ourselves or the public about what the law is and how it relates to CPD's actions. Okay, I'm going to keep talking. Okay. So before we recommend an audit, I think that we should do our job to make sure the public is fully informed about what the law says.
Please respect the mic.
So that people can have a full understanding, so that you're not coming here, frankly, wasting your time telling us that CPD has violated something that has nothing to do with CPD. I'm not saying that it doesn't benefit anybody for this commission to field concerns that we know are not applicable to the departments we oversee and then not share that information with the public. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help us. So that's why I'm a no on this. I hope that this evening will be instructive so that as we continue to field feedback from the community, it's actually feedback that's relevant to the work that this commission is charged to do.
Thank you. Is there any other debate on the motion?
I have a clarifying question, and I want to make sure that I'm hearing this correctly. When you say that the OIG, your closing statement was making sure that we're making recommendations that's applicable to the body that we're making recommendations to. So am I understanding that then your position is that the OIG cannot make cannot make an audit or cannot provide recommendations to a body that they have oversight over?
No, I'll be very specific then. It's a good question and I'm happy to answer it. My point is we have heard both in January 8th and written correspondence in internal communication complaints that CPD is violating the Welcoming City Ordinance because of things that have nothing to do with CPD. And I think it is our responsibility as a body to say, this is CPD's function. This is not. Now, if we hear complaints about things that are rightfully CPD's function, and it seems that there's an issue that we as an oversight body need to address, let's address it. Absolutely. But let's be frank. At our January 8th meeting, we had people, frankly, in policy-making authority in this city come in here and blatantly misstate our ordinance authority and CPD's legal authority. We had people come into our meeting and say, we have oversight over federal immigration agents. That's not true. And we have never said that as a body. We've never refuted those blatantly false statements about CPD's authority and our authority. And we don't do the public a service by being silent on that. So to go another step and say, let's do an audit now, and we haven't set the record straight about the basic facts is negligent on our part. So yes, of course, the OIG can make a recommendation, but we haven't done our due diligence yet in order to ask them to do that.
It's okay. Thank you so much for providing that clarity. I really wanted to understand the position before I respond. I'm a yay to making sure that the OIG does an investigation. I am a yay because one of the things that I want to uplift is that the OIG is an independent body. So their work is completely separate from our work. Their work is completely separate from what happened during public comment, whether it be favorable to the commission or not, whether it be informed or not. I also think that that's why it's important that we have engagements like this, where we would have had subject matter experts then engage and inform the public on a suite of options. Also making sure that in our presentation, we also provide where all the various oversight bodies stand. That's why this is such an amazing opportunity. I'm happy we're having the conversation, but unfortunately, I don't think that we're going to get the meat and substance that the conversation could have had because we don't have those elements. Thank you.
Is there any more debate on the motion? Hearing none. Those in favor of making a recommendation to the Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety to conduct an audit on CPD's implementation of the Welcoming City Ordinance and related directives, please signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it and the motion carries. The commission will make a recommendation to the Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety to conduct an audit on CPD's implementation of the Welcoming City Ordinance. We will now turn our main topic tonight, which is the Chicago Police Department's adherence to the Welcoming City Ordinance during immigration enforcement encounters. I want to highlight two things at the outset that may be obvious to most, but are important to note. We will talk about immigration enforcement a lot, but the commission doesn't have any jurisdiction over the federal agencies. If you want to share concern about possible misconduct by Immigration Customs Enforcement and CBP, you can bring it to the Committee on Immigrant and Refugee Rights. Again, they have a table here tonight. Similarly, the commission does not handle individual complaints about possible misconduct by Chicago police officers. Those complaints go to COPA. At the commission's meeting in January, we heard people share information about potential misconduct. The commission brought all of that information to COPA. If you want to share concern about possible misconduct by a CPD officer, COPA is also here tonight. The commission works on broader issues with CPD, like policies, trainings, and accountability systems that affect the whole department. Tonight, we'll hear from the Chicago Police Department Superintendent, Larry Snelling. The focus of the meeting is to ask questions that community members, commissioners, district counselors, and other partners in this work have for the superintendent and the department. We'll speak with Superintendent Snelling about CPD's responsibilities under the Welcoming City Ordinance, and we'll discuss how the department has addressed the changing landscape of federal enforcement activity in Chicago. Most importantly, we hope the conversation will provide clarity and provide what CPD officers can and should do during federal immigration enforcement activities. I would now like to invite Superintendent Snelling on stage, and Superintendent Snelling will open with a brief statement, and then commissioners will ask questions. Welcome, Superintendent Snelling.
First of all, good evening. Thank you, President Terry, and thank you to the entire commission. I'm going to open this by stating a few things because I've heard a lot of things. There have been a lot of things reported. What I would like to say to everyone here, if you really want to know the facts, if you want to know correspondence, there are emails, messages. Please FOIA those things. It's extremely important that you get the facts and the information on what's going on. Now, as far as having subject matter experts, that was not something that we discussed initially. The initial response was supposed to be myself, COPA, and the OIG. I found out about that meeting in a short period of time. I am the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department. I am tasked with keeping the entire city safe and making sure that my officers are doing so. I can't drop things and just show up when I'm called with a week's notice. We have to collaborate in a way with each other that's going to be the most effective for everyone involved. Now, it's important to understand this. At that meeting, I could have sent a designee because that's the law. But I prefer to be here myself because I don't run from anything, and I'm going to answer questions, and I'm going to answer them truthfully. And that's regardless of whether you like the answer or not. The truth is that we are tasked with keeping everyone safe. And when this occurred, we talk about the Welcoming City Ordinance, we talk about the Trust Act, and I'm not sure everyone is well versed on what it is. But I can guarantee you when those were written, no one wrote the ordinance and the law with this type of immigration enforcement in mind. I do not believe under any circumstances that anyone writing those policies, those orders, those laws believed that we would see what we saw this past fall. So what I'm going to tell you is this. When it comes to the Chicago Police Department and these Chicago police officers, our officers showed up to keep down violence. Well, it's okay. No, it's okay. This is the response I expected. Because here, I will tell you again, I'm always out there with my officers. Here's the point, and here's the point that I'm making. It's easy to blame CPD when you're looking for somebody to blame. But when you look across this country, we had a woman shot. Ms. Martinez was shot by federal agents. When that occurred, our officers were on the scene. There was civil unrest. Our officers were there to keep the crowd separated. You say we protected ICE. Let me explain something to you. ICE needed no protection. The people who needed protection are the ones that we stopped further from being shot. The ones that we protected were the ones that we stopped from further having gas dropped on them. You want to know how involved our officers were? They were gassed at the scene also. If our officers were involved in collaborating, they wouldn't have taken that for the people in that community. So I will tell you this. I'm going to answer every question to the best of my ability while I'm sitting here. And I'm going to give you the truth. And I'll tell you this right now, and I'm going to say it at this very moment. My CPD officers are out there working to keep communities safe. And I'm going to stand up for my officers because they're standing up for communities. With that, please.
Thank you, Superintendent Snelling. I'm sure all commissioners probably have questions. So Commissioner Gottlieb, I can start your way and we can work our way back.
Figure out the microphone situation, not working. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Snelling, for being here. I'm looking forward to this discussion. I appreciate you being here. So from my perspective, like one question I have is, so there might be situations where an officer observes where an officer observes an ICE agent doing what appears to be a crime or committing what appears to be a crime from their perspective. In those situations, what are CPD officers supposed to do? Like, what's the guidance?
Commissioner Gottlieb, thank you for the question, but can you be a little more specific when you say what is supposed to be a crime? That's not enough information. Explain to me what you mean.
So I mean, like, if there's a
Excuse me, hold on a second. Please be quiet and allow them to have the dialogue. If you came here to listen, then do so, or you will be asked to leave. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gottlieb.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to clarify. So if an officer observes an ICE agent violating state law or local law, or believes that to be the case, right? So I mean, I think there's going to be a question about this idea that they could be doing it sort of in their sort of duty as ICE officers. But let's assume that that's not the case, and an officer believes that an ICE agent is operating outside of the scope of the law. What guidance does what are officers supposed to do?
So let me give you a few things there, because again, that is very vague, and I want to be clear about what this is. One of the things that I heard was, why isn't CPD arresting ICE agents? The answer to that question is, I would turn everyone to what is called a supremacy clause. The supremacy clause is a federal law that prohibits states from interfering with federal agents when they're engaging in their duties. This prohibits local police officers from arresting ICE agents or engaging when they're in the performance of their duties. Now, when we start talking about what a violation of law is, we have to be careful with that, because we don't know how these agents are trained or what their marching orders are. So if we don't know those things, then there is due process. So the bottom line is, those federal agents under the supremacy clause would be protected against interference from the state. Now, that being said, and I can't release it at this point because it still has not been approved. It's now sitting with City Hall. But based on the mayor's executive order, we have given our response to it for our general order, and it's responding to incidents involving citizenship enforcement. This is something that's in the works at this moment. But as the police department, we are very focused on making sure that we keep communities safe. Now, if you look across the country, and you look at what has happened, and we got the opportunity to learn from another place that saw 8 days and nights of rioting. We saw people killed in other states. For us, the important thing was to stop people from being hurt. We know that there's emotions around this. At the scenes of a lot of these situations, emotions ran high. And when emotions are high, people act and sometimes overreact. And then you get an overreaction from law enforcement. When that happens, people get hurt, people can lose their lives. So right now, I can tell you what we did when we knew federal agents were coming to Chicago. After the first incident back in June 4th, we saw something that we hadn't seen. We were responding to a call of a police officer who needed help. That was the call. We showed up. We had no idea that federal immigration enforcement was going on. This was a contract. When we get to the scene, there is a large group of protesters outside of the building. We have to investigate to find out what's actually going on. We found out that there was federal immigration going on inside at the time. At this time, it's rush hour, it's raining, people are spilling out into the streets. There's a high level of traffic. What we do as the Chicago Police Department is that we put things in place to control traffic and control the movement of people so no one is hurt or harmed. So after that, what we did was we set up things where we had a deputy chief responsible when we got a call to a location where we had immigration enforcement. Whoever was the first on scene was to take notes and push that information up the chain and make sure that we had a deputy chief. That deputy chief would then do a report and send it up the chain to our chief of patrol. So that was what we put in place. This was the first time that we had seen this. And I believe not only were we learning, everyone was learning.
So just one quick follow-up. So in the instances I described, sort of given the executive order or not given the executive order, either way, is CPD committed to documenting what's happening and sending any potential evidence to the state's attorney as she has said is necessary for her to move forward with any possible prosecution if there was a crime committed?
Listen, if there's a crime committed by anyone and people are working outside the scope of their duties and we see a crime that's being committed, we have body cams because oftentimes we have to go a little deeper than that. We have body cams. That body cam footage is kept at evidence.com. We can't touch it. We can't alter it. We can't do anything to it. So the bottom line is this. The bottom line is this. When our officers go out, if our officers witness anything that they believe is a crime and we have evidence of it, yes, we will do what's within this order. But right now, I'm not going to talk about the order until it's been approved.
Thank you. Are those all your questions? Yes. Commissioner Piamonte?
Yes, Superintendent. Public commenters have said that CPD officers face protesters and have their backs to ICE while ICE is causing harm. Why do officers face protesters rather than facing ICE? And I have to say that I was home watching this on TV in November when it happened, and it was just such an awful visual. And I know that, you know, if there was someone in charge there, like you just said, when the change went into effect, that should have been run up the chain to someone. Who would have made that type of decision, and what type of training do they get? And, you know, after the fact, you know, what is your opinion about that now, and would that happen again?
No one would have made a decision because that's a non-starter. So let me just explain something to you about my background and the background of a lot of our officers who are dealing with large-scale protests, things of that nature. Demonstrator tactics.
If you all want to leave, I mean, I need these folks removed if they want to continue to be disrespectful. We will not continue to allow this. You either came here to listen, as I stated, or you can go outside and protest.
And this is why it's a non-starter, because as the police, we have training. And we're trained to watch those who are posing a threat that would lead to a higher level of force from agents. If we are not facing the crowd, that's where the demonstration would come from. See, just because we believe that our actions are justified doesn't make it so. So when we step into a position where we now give a federal agent the ability to use force, this now becomes a problem. What we want to do is keep everyone at a safe distance so there isn't a clash between federal agents and those who protest. If you want to protest, it is your right to do so. But it is not your right to physically engage with federal agents. If we know that those federal agents are not engaging at that time, and we know that there's anger, there's hostility, the next step is violence. And we want to make sure that we keep the violence down. Without our officers being there, these scenes would have been way more violent. There would have been more citizens hurt. There would have been more residents hurt. Our officers stopped it. And it doesn't matter if we believe it or not. I'm telling you what I know.
What? Are you still? You have another question or follow-up? Okay.
The question, I did answer the question, and the answer is no. You don't have the experience or the knowledge to understand why we wouldn't face the ICE agents, why we wouldn't face a hostile crowd. That's the answer to the question. Please.
Vice President Ruby Navarrijo.
Thank you. Let's let the superintendent answer. We have serious questions to ask, so I appreciate it. One question.
Wait, hold on. Excuse me. I'm sorry. How disrespectful are we going to allow these people? Shut the what up? I mean, come on. It tells me that they're not serious. If we are going to have a serious conversation about this, it can't be this way, because it tells me no one is willing to listen or to understand what's happening here. If we truly want to get to the bottom of this, we have to have a serious conversation. And if we're not willing to do that, and all we're willing to do is yell and scream, we know what you're here for. So please, please be respectful. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a CPD directive that states that department members cannot set up a traffic perimeter to assist civil immigration enforcement. How do department members determine when to set up a traffic perimeter during civil immigration enforcement actions?
So a real good question. This was a question that came up on the 4th of June. When we set up anything that looks like a perimeter with traffic, it's not for immigration enforcement. Here's the deal. If we have federal agents who are engaging in immigration enforcement, and we showed up and set up a perimeter so that they could take people away, so that we could assist them while they're doing it, then we are truly in violation of the Welcoming City Ordinance and the Trust Act. If we have a protest around it, and we're trying to protect people, and we're trying to keep people safe, and we're trying to keep crowds divided so no one gets hurt, injured, shot, killed. We had a woman, we had Ms. Martinez shot in this city. We did not want to see that again. So we would set those up to make sure that we're either dividing crowds, to make sure that we restore and maintain the peace, or we do it to make sure that no one gets hurt, and we do it for traffic.
Thank you. Earlier you said that the Chicago Police Department can't take actions against federal agents who are performing their duties. Does that necessarily mean that in order for CPD to consider an arrest, that federal officer has to be off duty? Like, is it like every time that, I guess my question is it only when they're on duty that that applies, the supremacy clause?
No, it's not only when they're not off duty, but something outside the scope of what their duties allow them to do. Obviously, if we saw a federal agent just walk up to someone and shoot someone for no apparent reason, we've got a different event there. But if if it's within the scope of their duties, the supremacy clause does not allow us to make a determination if they're acting outside the scope of their duty under those circumstances and to make an arrest. So we have to be very clear about what that is. It's a tough thing to have to figure out, and it puts our officers in a very, very difficult position.
Thank you. One question, then I'll move on. For victims who've been harmed by these actions, has the police department offered to write reports? Has there been reports that have been issued that are tied to what's been going on? Because some people want to know if, hey, how can I document this officially with the department? Is that something that they can do?
If that's a great question. If someone comes to us with a complaint, we are going to document it. We will put that in a report. If you show up to a police station, if you show up and talk to a police officer, it's our responsibility to write you a report. And we will write a report and document whatever it is that you're asking us to document, because that's our responsibility.
Is that it? Commissioner, you have your questions now?
Yes, I have a follow-up to the point of Commissioner Navarrijo's question. Thank you so much for asking. So there was a district counselor, I think in District 12, that uplifted that a community member went to make a report on what they thought was, or what they perceived as constitutional violations by a federal officer. They went to their district and they were turned away, and they were told essentially that CPD cannot make reports on the federal officers. Can you let us know where would community members go if they were turned away, if they wanted to make a report?
So are you saying that this was a district counselor that did that, or someone who went to them?
Somebody went to the district counselor
Okay,
saying they were turned away.
I'm aware of that. That was a damage to property incident where a person, an agent chased an individual through their property, and there was something that was damaged. At that time, our officers didn't have clear information on how to document something where a federal agent was involved in something like criminal damage to property. So this wasn't anything where a person was injured and they wanted to make a report. We rectified that, we clarified it, and we put out information for that. But you should be able to go into any district and make a report, and we will give you a report, and our officers should give a report. If those officers are not giving you a report, then we have other bodies where you can make a complaint on that. So documenting things in a report is something that we do to make sure that we ensure that people are getting what they need.
Thank you so much for answering that question. I'm happy to hear there's a remedy on that situation. I have a follow-up question since we're in the point of documentation. So I know that you all just released a new special order or some guidance to officers. And now it requires that a field deputy must be on scene at any time that CPD and ICE are on scene. And there's also some reports that they have to fill out when they're on site watching these operations. I kind of want to know how many field deputies have been trained. I know field deputies are also very limited. So I'm wondering, have you all made any capacity plans? If field deputies are not available, who would be next in charge, just so community can know? And I also just want to know, how often are these reports then being reviewed and by whom? And are they FOIAble as well?
So here's what I'll tell you. When anyone gets to the scene, any supervisor, they're the incident commander until, our area deputy chief shows up. If there's no area deputy chief, we also have a district commander. If not, the chief of patrol will make sure that someone is sent to that location. When those documents go up the chain, we maintain those documents. Could they be FOIAble? Absolutely. You know, I'm a strong believer in one thing is transparency. And this is why I started out by saying, if there's information that you want and you want true information, please FOIA that information. The other thing is there are things on our website, things that we put on our dashboard that if you have questions about it, you can go in and look at our dashboard. If you don't have a clear understanding, we can dig a little deeper on that.
And then in respect of hello, okay. In respect of my fellow commissioners' times, I will kind of go to this question that I had. So the Welcome in City Ordinance says that members are not allowed to participate in or assist federal immigration, but CP members are also able to respond to public safety concerns. I want to know, one, how are you defining public safety concerns? And two, I saw a video during city council that made me have that question in my mind that included officers providing guidance to federal officers about how they can escape the crowd of protesters outside by being able to funnel out some of the members that they had detained without being spotted. So I'm wondering if you would consider that collaboration or what you would deem that and what kind of happened in that case.
Well, I'd have to dig a little deeper into that because what you're saying right now, I don't have all of the facts on that, so I don't want to misspeak about that. But what I will tell you is this: if there's some collaboration, if our officers are engaging in actual immigration enforcement and it's not about public safety, our officers will be held accountable for that. That's an absolute fact. The issue is this: when we have a large crowd gathering and we're trying to keep people safe, there's always that fine line where it's going to look like we're collaborating when we're actually trying to keep people safe and stop a situation from blowing up into something higher. We have to get on the scene and de-escalate these situations. If we're not de-escalating these situations, they will continue to escalate until someone is seriously harmed. We want to avoid that. That is the focus, and that has always been the focus. And our police officers show up, and we try to get those federal agents off the scene as quickly as possible because we know the longer they stay there, the more emotions continue to rise. If we can keep that down and we can keep people from getting harmed or hurt, no one has lost their life. That is the number one, that was the number one concern after the shooting of Ms. Martinez.
Commissioner Wortham, do you have any questions?
I'll just follow up there then.
Yes.
Superintendent, you talked about in relation to people have repeatedly said this thing about the perimeters. If hypothetically, Chicago police were to arrive on the scene of federal immigration enforcement and a person or people identifying themselves as protesters were blocking a city street without a permit to do so, technically, legally, would that be an arrestable offense by the Chicago Police Department?
It would.
Okay. So when the Chicago Police Department is, as some people are describing, creating perimeters, separating federal immigration enforcement from said people who describe themselves as protesters, is that in an effort to exercise the discretion to not affect arrests, but to allow them to protest and also not interfere with the federal immigration enforcement?
Well, this is something that we do all the time. You know, again, to avoid escalating situations, especially when emotions are high and having this turn into a melee, you know, we give people time. We give them the ability to express how they feel. As a matter of fact, on June 4th, we actually had people who actually sat down and blocked vehicles at some point. We gave them a reasonable amount of time to move. We made no arrests. And they eventually got up on their own and moved. It is an arrestable offense, but we would prefer not to have to arrest someone for something like that, especially when we know emotions are running high, because this could escalate into a situation now where CPD is actually in a physical conflict with protesters.
Okay, a similar question. If hypothetically on the scene of federal immigration enforcement, CPD were to arrive to the scene and people describing themselves as protesters were physically interfering with federal immigration agents, such that they were actually committing, assaults or batteries, would that be an arrestable offense by CPD?
Again, it would be an arrestable offense.
Okay.
Which is why we were called multiple times to locations where we had agents who said that they were being attacked. Now, we made no arrest in those situations because no one could be identified who had done those things. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to separate and keep the peace so that we don't have to arrest anyone in these situations.
Because if you're on the scene and it gets to that, though, and you are there and can identify people who identify themselves as protesters who are physically engaging with federal immigration agents, then again, CPD's technical legal responsibility would be to make an arrest, correct?
Yeah, it would be.
Okay.
But again, discretionarily, we make these decisions for what we see at the time that's happening. Do we use discretion in these situations? Absolutely.
Okay, and I think that's fine. I just think that that is something that hasn't been said in this space yet. And so I want to make sure that that's clear because we keep talking about harm and people being harmed, but I'm not sure that the idea or the concept of CPD having exercise discretion on these scenes has been specifically articulated in these meetings. And I want that to be very, very clear as we talk about what the actual law is. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just make my question quick because I wanted to make sure my colleagues had an opportunity. If there are concerns about officers engaging or violating the welcoming city ordinance, where can people find recourse related to that?
So we just there was just a vote on COPA being able to take complaints. I'm not really sure where that is, if it's passed at this point. I believe it's still up. But I welcome that. Listen, I welcome the vote for the OIG to do an investigation. Again, because this is transparency. And I welcome it. It's not something that I'm recommending, but I welcome it because I'm that confident that when our officers are showing up on the scene, they're showing up with the safety of the people of these communities in mind. Now, if that investigation shows and has some proof that any of our officers engaged in immigration enforcement, they will be held accountable. But I have enough confidence to say without a doubt that any outside entity I welcome to do an investigation. There was a report that was done that stated that I didn't trust the Bureau of Internal Affairs to do the investigations. That is not what I said. What I said was, if we did that investigation internally as the Chicago Police Department, most people are not going to believe the outcome if it's not what they expect it to be. Therefore, a third party doing an investigation, I welcome all day long.
Thank you so much, Superintendent.
President Terry,
Commissioner
may I be
Driver
recognized?
actually has a few questions, and so,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Thank you. And thank you as well, Superintendent. I just have a one question, and it's related to hiring practices. So I know that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, historically, since their creation in 2002, those officers or agents transfer out at a very high clip. I'm particularly concerned with ICE and CBP agents who have been masked up, and we're not able to verify whether they have committed crimes on the streets of the city of Chicago because we can't identify them. And I know that there's a hiring practice that CPD or DHR, wherever that's housed, has where if you're prior law enforcement, you can check that box and receive some level of preferential treatment. Although I am not completely versed on that. And it's maybe a better question for the commissioner of DHR, but just wondering if you could speak to that at all, or if there's any remedy to keep some of the folks who have behaved very aggressively in our communities from actually ending up as Chicago police officers.
Is it me? I couldn't really make out the question.
So his question is about hiring practices
Okay.
and those who have potentially been involved in activities as ICE agents being a part of the department.
So here's what I tell you. We
Clarify that.
do our own background investigations. I'm sorry.
President Terry asked the question, but there was a little bit more to it. So the prior law enforcement box, when applying for a Chicago Police Department officer job, are those agents who typically transfer at a very high clip from federal agents into different municipalities around the country? Is there any remedy to stop folks who have been who may have committed crimes from becoming Chicago police officers and getting preferential treatment?
Here, if we have someone who committed a crime and we find that out during a background investigation, we don't hire those people. That's part of the background investigation. It's the purpose for having that background investigation. We're pretty clear about those things that we can eliminate people for. Now, if the question is, can we eliminate someone because they held a job as a federal agent somewhere else? No, that's not enough to eliminate them from the process. It would, because that would be discriminatory and discriminatory practices. But if we know that someone committed a crime, they were accused of a crime, these are things that could eliminate someone, and in most cases, and in probably all cases, would eliminate them from the possibility of becoming a Chicago police officer.
So just to clarify, I'm not saying that anybody who's worked for a federal agency should not be allowed to apply. I'm asking specifically about the prior law enforcement experience and how that translates to preferential treatment. And my concern particularly is that as a Chicago police officer, you have body cams, you're not masked, you have identifiable markers on your uniform. We know if a Chicago police officer committed a crime because they're identifiable. ICE and CBP agents have not been identifiable, and so therefore it's very difficult to do a proper background check because we don't even know who these people are at all. And so I'm just asking, here's a better question. What happens when somebody applies and they have prior law enforcement experience in the Chicago Police Department? So if I apply for a job and I was a ICE agent, what preferential treatment would I receive? Or any at all?
Preferential treatment?
Well, yeah.
Did you ask what preferential treatment would they receive? None. There's no preferential treatment for anyone coming from another law enforcement agency. One of the things that you have to understand about Chicago is that we don't take laterals, we don't take transfers. Everyone that we hire has to go through the same process as someone who is becoming a law enforcement officer for the very first time. They have to sit for our exam. They have to go through drug testing, proper background investigations. They have to go through a PRQ. We put them through a polygraph. Those are all of the things that we go through before we hire someone. So there is no preferential treatment for someone coming from another law enforcement agency. They have to start from scratch. So at one point, it was determined that we would try to take laterals. We don't do that anymore. We want to make sure that when we're hiring someone, we've done a proper background investigation, and there are no preferential treatments for people who come from other law enforcement agencies.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's my only question, President Terry. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Driver. Thank you, Superintendent Snelling, again for being here and for joining us on stage and answering the commission's questions. We truly do appreciate your partnership in this work. Can we have them removed, please? Thank you.